But here's what I see happening, though, with this race thing with Black people. We are starting more and more, and it's understandable, to start to kind of circle our own wagons. I think that Black folk across lines of class, and even among Black elites, right, are having more and more doubt about whether or not we are ever going to be prosperous and at peace in an integrated society. Now, that's not me pushing that. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing right now. Sure. You know, how it used to be really, really cool for Black elites, at least, to brag about, oh, we the only Black family in this neighborhood.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You ain't talking to no Black people who function like that anymore. At this point,
and that's a great thing.
Yeah, that is a great thing. At this point, Black people are becoming more and more conscious where they like, look, if we're going to be the only Black people there, I ain't trying to do that. I ain't trying to send my kid to a school where he or she going to be the only Black kid. I'm not trying to send them through that trauma. Yeah. I'm not trying to go to work at a company where I'm going to be the only Black employee. I ain't trying to go, you know, I tell them at Louisville all the time, right? When they talk about Black faculty, you know, if you got a department at your university that is totally white in 2021, there's some intentionality behind that, right? And so if you go out trying to recruit a Black professor to come to your department and he or she comes in to visit and ain't nobody else Black there, they are well within their rights and within their righteous, sane mind to say, ain't no way in hell I'm coming to that department. I'm going to be by myself in that cauldron. Not going to do it. And see, this makes sense. And I've been trying to tell some of the administrators at U of L, man, I just found out a few weeks ago, the College of Arts and Sciences is the largest college at the University of Louisville. I'm just going to use it as an example, but it's really, it's illustrative of a lot of predominantly white schools, right? At 400 and some professors in the College of Arts and Sciences, 24 Blacks, 24 Black professors, okay? 10 of them are in the Department of Pan-African Studies in one department. So when you got
then it's really 14.
Yeah, when you got that type of stuff going on, right? And so we're seeing Black parents more and more, they're choosing to send their kids to HBCUs. I talked to one of my homeboys, Walter Kimbrough, some years ago, who's the president of Dillard down in New Orleans. Yeah. And he talked about how these kids are coming to HBCUs now. And I'm like, why do you think that's happening? And he said, because plain and simple, these Black parents ain't willing to keep sending their children to these schools and be mistreated. And that's happening in society all the way around. And so I think the economic thing is going to shift. I think the Black people are going to start to more and more coalesce around one another instead of continuously making these demands or cries in the dark about, you know, integration, because there's no historical evidence that white people in mass really want that.
And we see it every day that they don't.
Yeah.
Every day.
That's sad.
I tell you, while I was in Tulsa, I was working with OU, University of Oklahoma. And actually, my alma mater is actually University of Texas, Longhorn. So you already know the rivals. But one of the things, even when I went to Texas, I felt a certain sense of being separated, not only just because of race, but it was the plethora of reasons.
It's the same on all these plantations, ain't it?
That part.
It is.
So let me tell you, this was my thing when I went to Texas. I was like, well, it's on a 40-acre space, right? So they were saying, 40 acres and a mule. And I was like, well, I'm gonna just go get my 40 acres and a bull. But at the end, I graduated and, it's all about networking. It's supposed to be, right? Sure. And, after that, I just even saw another sense of separation between the Black community or the Black student populace. But when I went to OU, I actually went into a department, I won't even call them out. But at the same time, I was the only Black male in a agency of, I think it was 50 to 60 individuals. And the whole admin was white women. Now, the thing is, like, the dynamic I've been used to, because there's been several jobs that I've been on where I've been the only one. And they didn't understand the sense of, okay, yeah, I'm here, But I took it as an opportunity. Let me advocate for these students that don't have anyone to advocate for them. So, I took that sacrifice. But one of the things when I was at OU, I had to, I forced a policy for the diversity and inclusion, because I was telling them about, last year was this year was the first year they decided to celebrate Black History Month at this particular agency. And it's been in business for over 40 years. And of course, when Black history comes along, most of the agencies and other places, they come to you and say, all right, well, educate everybody about Black history. And I'm like, Black history is not just Black history, it's American history. So why are you just putting it on Black history, Black people? And then plus, are you looking at it more entertainment, or are you really looking at it as education? So for the first time in my whole professional career, I decided to back out on it and not, lead it. And I told them, for the first time, I was like, look, you all do the research and you bring forth information of, the great things that Black people have contributed to this society and how they built this country, really. And, it was a different kind of response. They went with it. But, my thing was at the end, is it really entertainment or is it education? And also I was telling them, because it was actually a trauma-informed care department, I was like, do you realize every year you're saying, all right, Black history, but every year we're getting re-traumatized, because you don't talk about the advancements. You don't talk about the good things. It's always slavery and going forward to at least to civil rights. There's nothing really outside of that when it pertains to that. Most of these, programs and institutions. Have you experienced that at all? And he's already
giggle, so I think it's a yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, bro, CJ, they can't even have a serious conversation about slavery in the process moving up, to the modern civil rights movement. The lack of, Booker T. Washington was right. Not Booker T. Washington, I'm sorry, but we go back, miseducation of the Negro.
Mm-hmm.
That it's the miseducation of Americans, period. Right? It's miseducation of the Americans, period. America's educational system is so broken when you talk about, it's broken in so many ways, but it's certainly broken when you talk about race.
Right.
And we talk about Black folk. All these fools running around here crying bloody murder about critical race theory. And I tell them every time they call me up about it, every time I speak about it, every time I'm on a panel, every time I'm on a television or radio show, and they say, well, what about critical race theory? I'm like, I'm not talking about critical race theory, because that's not really what you're talking about. What we're really talking about is your attempt to maintain white supremacy in American education. That's what you're really talking about, right? And the effects of white supremacy in American education. And I have to be clear. I don't know how much time we have left. When I talk about white supremacy, man, I'm talking about the belief of one group of people who believe they and they alone, because of their race, because of the color of their skin, have the right to think, know, and decide in everything. That's white supremacy. Yeah. Where all the power lies with one group to think, to know, and decide. So whatever space you in, like the space where you're the only Black person, no matter what ideas you got to have some white people gonna green light it. Look, I'm brilliant. All right. I don't mind saying it. And people, you're arrogant. It's enough brothers that y'all done broke down to the point where they walking around looking at the cracks in the sidewalks.
Listen.
Right.
So me, one who don't feel that way. Right. I ain't that Negro, right? I'm not that Negro who gonna come in and be like, well, I can't speak for all Black people. If you ask me, well, what do Black people think? I'm gonna tell you, I speak for every Black person on the planet, right? I'm telling you exactly what we feel, right? But these people don't teach anybody anything about Black folk legitimately. And so coming out of these school systems, white people got this tripped out, twisted superiority complex. Black people got an inferiority complex. And neither one of them know a doggone thing legitimate about our people. So I see a lot of these celebrations, man, during Black History Month. They are emptied out. They are emptied out because you can't teach what you don't know. I tell them in JCPS right now, you know, in Jefferson County Public School System, they talk about, we want to teach this Black Studies class. I'm like, who gonna teach it?
Right.
You ain't got the horses.
Yeah.
You know, you ain't got the horses. So until you can speak to that, and that's a long doggone thing. But man, there are very few legitimate conversations. And don't talk to me about entertainment. Don't talk to me about sports. Don't talk to me about the rappers. You know, I'm a sports fanatic and I still love hip hop. Talk to me about serious history. Talk to me about serious politics.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some revolts. Talk to me about Hiram Revels and Blanche Bruce and the fact that after Reconstruction, it took almost a century to have another Black U.S. senator. Do you know how many Black U.S. senators we've had? There have been almost 2,000 senators elected in this doggone country. Only 11 of them have been Black. And then talk to me about the candidacy of Charles Booker running up against somebody like Mitch McConnell in the context of that and how that fits into history and current politics. Those are the types of conversations that I think that you could only have, you know, with any type of intellectual solidification if you really, really educated. And most people aren't. You know, very, very few mature conversations about Black people happen out here, man.
Nothing ever was handed, all about respect, never about ego. Wish I could have retired a long time ago and disappeared way beyond the trees. But my homies kept influencing me, said they needed to hear my lyrics, like my flow, cause they felt my spirit. Plus the people needed to hear it, a conversation with conscientious lyrics.